Hello everyone, Burb here. Part of the goals of this channel was to create a complete Uma encyclopedia. Because I didn't start content creation until midway through Unity Cup, and I didn't start this series until Fine Motion, there are plenty of characters that were released beforehand that I will periodically have to go back and write guides about. The one I'm going to do today is Tokai Teio, specifically the original skin that was available at the start of the game. So without further ado, this is a way tuned up guide to Tokai Teio. While there's not a banner currently for her, will there be a banner for this particular Teo skin again? She is available via legend races, in which you can go and run a daily legend race, and over the course of 5 months or 150 days, you will get a star piece a day. When you hit 150, you can unlock this character. If you are new to the game, she is also available on the original 3-star Uma pick ticket that will give you a character in the game. You should be going and attempting to grab and pull for Umas that you enjoy. And if you like Tokai Tail, feel free to go and grab her on the selector to run in future champions meetings or PvP events or team trials or whatever that you like. On this channel, that's kind of my MO, is that you should be pulling for characters that you enjoy so you enjoy the game. Outside of being a character that you enjoy, Tokai Teo is also a very good parent inherit, being a 0.25 and a relatively flexible character. She's also buffed in the Evolutions update that will probably happen somewhere around 2nd anniversary by fixing some of her gold skills that do have some problems. But other than that, she is a perfectly fine character with a very powerful ultimate, being a 0.45 ultimate that is very sought after, specifically for pace chasers and late surgers. And closers as well. All the backliners can utilize this particular ultimate. For her aptitudes, she is relatively flexible. You can go and run her in particularly medium and long is where she really thrives. You can stretch her into miles without too much effort. You just require mile parents, which you want because you still want to get your distance aptitude S anyways. But sprints will be a little bit more tough and they require an additional pink spark to proc during the career. As for her strategy, she's built as a pace chaser, but you can go and stretch her into the late surger or end closer position through the use of parents and front runner as well. All 4 strategies she can technically run. She particularly thrives in the pace chaser position, and late surger is not too difficult to do as well. She's also a turf track runner. Putting her in dirts is going to be a little bit tough. For her stat bonuses, she has 20% speed and 10% stamina. In the climate of Grand Live, this is an advantage because 20% speed means that you can go and very easily drop that 3rd speed card for a utility card, or in particular, a stamina card. And that stamina bonus, combined with the fact you can go and actually run stamina cards rather frequently, means that you can really easily hit your stamina goals compared to the other Umas on the roster. The only problem with this particular stat spread is that you don't really have any power or whip bonus, and particularly power bonus is going to be rather tough. You can still run that 3rd speed card and it will go and generate you a lot more power. You can run a power card to get that up as well. You can run a 3rd wit card in the shorter tracks to go and boost your wit as well. So very flexible in that rather with in terms of the decks that you're able to run. Of course, go and run whatever cards are strongest for you if you don't have the particular SSRs as well. The good SR cards can go and slot in these as well. For her ultimate, Sky High Teo Step simply says when closing the gap to runners ahead late race, greatly increase velocity with flashy footwork on the final straight. In the 7-1 patch, this was buffed to have now a precondition rather than just having to happen on the final straight, which is rather finicky. Now her conditions are a little bit better, particularly if you are in the late race and you are 3rd or better with someone in front of you. So you can technically be in 1st place, but because you have to have another Uma within 1 horse length of you, you go and you go and are able to satisfy this precondition. Note that you can pass into this condition from 4th into 3rd, and at the time you pass into 3rd, assuming the Bastion condition is actually true as well, you will go and proc Sky High Tail Step, or at least satisfy this precondition. So this can technically late proc. The last condition is overtake, and we haven't really talked about this, but is overtake is one of the most finicky conditions in the game, and the way it actually works is that you need someone in your vision. It's technically vision-based, as you've seen. You probably heard you need a horse within 8 lengths of you. The reason why you hear that is 20 meters, and that is the standard vision range. But vision buffs and debuffs, although you don't really need to worry about that too much, do affect this particular cone. Now, the reason why it is so finicky is that there are basically dead zones to the side of you in your vision cone. Now, this is exaggerating a little bit, but in particular, on the final corner when you're selecting your lane, if you wide swing, you are going to have trouble actually seeing another Uma. And when you don't see the Uma, you can't cause them to become an overtake target. When an overtake target is acquired, the is overtake condition is able to proc as long as if your projected position over 15 seconds is basically at or in front of the Uma in question. That's the easiest way for me to explain it. Basically, if you are going to pass them within the next 15 seconds, the is overtake condition is said to be satisfied. I'm pretty sure the game just projects your position at your current speed compared to the current speed of the Uma that is your overtake target, and projects it out by 15 seconds. But that is all speculation. But either way, that is when the is overtake condition happens. Again, the biggest thing that makes this finicky is this dead zone that happens on basically the sides of your Uma, especially when you wide swing and there's no one within like 5 or 6 lanes of you. If you're able to satisfy that, the actual condition will proc on the final corner or later, but it's clipped off because it must not be a corner, which is basically saying that it will proc on the final straight. If you satisfy the precondition, which is the blue line, it can happen any time during this time, it will go and delay proc into that final straight. If you go and satisfy the condition after the final straight, you will go and late proc this. Notably, the only real condition that will be late procking most likely will be that third place condition or later. We will talk about that later on in the video. If you are able to satisfy this, you get a whopping 0.45 for 5 seconds. This is equivalent to a triumphant pulse, which is the bearing and metric that we use in general. Oguri Cap's ultimate is very good. It's one of the best late race ultimates in the game, and this matches it, which is actually somewhat rare on the roster at the current moment. So this is a very powerful and potent late race ultimate with a little bit of a finicky condition compared to Tripulse, which is just being second through fifth, but otherwise, perfectly fine and strong. Her unique inherit is also very desirable because you only take minus 0.2, and your 0.25 ultimate is, it's about 30% or 40% better, 40% better than the standard 0.15 late race inherit that you would be grabbing on something that is not a 0.45 base ultimate. So very desirable inherit specifically for pace chasers, and late surgers and backliners in general. But in general, Tokai Teio blue Tokai Teio, relatively good in terms of her ultimate. For her careers and events, she does have a long career, which is a little bit difficult. You do have a third place or better Tenno Show Spring, which is usually the one that trips people up a lot when you're going and trying to move into sprint and mile races. The stamina requirement for this is, in the mid 500s or so, and that makes it a little bit difficult to go and complete your career. Now, you can gamble it by having lower stamina, but you do need some level of stamina, otherwise you will just stam out on this race and you will fail your career. So that third place is your bottleneck there for stamina. The Arima Keen is kind of a fake long. You don't really have to worry about that too much. And the Kakuka Show, you just need a little bit of early stamina to do. But a relatively long career, a little bit more difficult than a lot of the other careers in the game. And her secret events are simple though. You win the regular Triple Crown, and you win the Spring Senior Triple Crown. Notably, you have to run the Takarazuka Kinen and Osaka High. Those are additional races alongside her actual career race, but you have to actually run the senior version of the Takarazuka Kinen in order to trigger the bonus 90 all stats. And this 90 all stats, remember, is boosted by race bonus as well. So this is actually quite a bit of stats and should be possibly considered if you have bad trainings, but Grand Live, it's really difficult to add additional races. As for the actual Triple Crown, those are all actually just in her career. So as long as you go and win that Kakuga Show, which is going to be the hardest one of the three to do, you will go and get a copy of Head On, which is really nice because it was also buffed in the 7.1 patch, and Head On is a very incredibly good pace chaser acceleration that is generally good in pretty much every single track in the game. For her events and skills, unfortunately, she is a Hot Topic character, which is the worst out of the 4 options in the game. Hot Topic just boosts Akikawa and Reporter bond when you click on it, which is not too important. Otherwise, you do have a top-down choice option for Hydrate, which is a recovery, which is nice because it's just for pace chasers, as well as Prepared to Pass, which is Speedstar White, what Fine Motion gives. Basically, it is a final corner velocity skill. So depending on the track, it might be mid race, it might be late race, it might be speed carryover, etc. Her innate skills are prudent position, go with the flow, and soft step. Now, prudent position on a pace chaser or a backliner isn't the most important thing in the world. It does technically give you something because when you're changing lanes, you do have a little bit of a speed up. It shouldn't necessarily be particularly prioritized over a bunch of other skills. Go with the flow. Unless you have an overtake target, you don't really change lanes very often, and go with the flow is just going to make you change lanes faster. Usually people just use things like nimble navigator, sorry, or no stopping me, stuff like that, that actually go and give you acceleration when it goes high roll and proc early. So go with the flow is not necessarily prioritized as well. Soft step is it's actually a very reliable recovery, and medium tracks, you will probably be picking this up as a white recovery option. Her two golds are where she has her problems. Technician is Shrewd Step gold and the only source of it currently, if I remember. Shrewd Step does have value. We have not made a Shrewd Step video. I will not go into Shrewd Step too much, but do note that it does have value, and particularly there is a increase in your target speed at the start of the race because you are starting at 0 and you are going to, your early race speed coefficient. So technician will proc when you are in one of the outer posts, basically. I think it's like lane 3 or more. You will generally trigger the Shrewd Step condition. Technician, there's not necessarily a reason to get that additional 0.1 for the gold at the current time. Lightning Step has a major problem, and it's that, like, basically it's only acceleration currently. The lane movement speed does not really matter in the mid race, and it's basically a 1 out of 12 or 1 out of 10, somewhere around there, to actually give you any value whatsoever. You can see on this graph here the massive dead zone that it has in the start of the mid race and the middle of the mid race. It only happens if you actually acceleration leak into the late race. So this skill probably shouldn't be taken at the current moment. I don't normally talk about evolutions, but it's very important on this character because they do fix a lot of her problems with evolutions. Particularly, Technician becomes Talented Technique, which adds a speed component, which doesn't seem like a lot until you realize that this is basically what Umastan is, and this doesn't really have a major delay. So Shrewd Step will proc, I think it's roughly a second into a race when you start changing lanes enough. It depends on which gate you're in, but this will PDM break you. Every single roll except for Frontrunner has pace down mode at the start of the race for pretty much the first sector. It's almost through the first sector. And this will break it because you have a velocity skill and you can't pace down mode when you have a velo skill. So this will be like, if you're a backliner, this will feel like Umastan, but better because it's proccing much sooner. And this is what gives her a lot of her power. Lightning Step becomes Tail Step and gives you a target speed, which also goes and at least gives you some upside in the basically 90% of the time where it's not going to go and leak into the Excel zone. This also means that it will speed carry over if it does leak into the Excel zone, which this looks a lot like Christmas Oguri Ultimate is actually rather powerful. So these two evolutions go and fix a lot of the problems with the character. Do note that even without these, she has a rather strong ultimate as well. So she's not dead at all by any means right now. She just gets rather good after that second anniversary evolutions change. For CM viability, you're looking for situations where the spurt is significantly far enough back from the final straight that you can consistently proc your ultimate without it being eaten by the acceleration zone. In situations like CM18, which is the one after the current Oi Dirt, the actual final straight is a little bit too close to that spurt to actively proc. As a pace chaser in third position, that instant procs. The thing is, you can also delay proc this, as I said, by running one of the backliner roles like Late Surger or End Closer. Late Surger is by far the easiest. It only requires 2 parents, and basically the point is that you are further back in the pack. You have hit your 5th or 6th place acceleration usually, and you are pushing forward into the pack as you accelerate and hopefully reach max speed before this ultimate procs. The secondary sort of theory behind it is that if you're in third place as a late surger and end closer, oh no, you're in third place as a late surger and end closer, you're probably winning the race at that point, or at least you're dueling with one other person for vying for a position. So that's a favorable position to be in third place or better when your ultimate is actually eaten. Otherwise, you're getting value from it by passing late into this. This happens with a lot of these pace chaser ultimates that are front half of the pack, is that if you want to go and run Tokai Teio in those shorter tracks, usually that have final straights very close to that spurt, you go and run her in the backliners because you can pass from 4th into 3rd place. So it'll look something more like this. You'll probably pass it somewhere in the tripulse range and get a bonus tripulse. So in general, my suggestion for Champions Meeting, do look at the actual track itself. This is a generalization, as pace will be most likely useful for mediums and longs, and late surger or end closer will most likely be for miles and sprints. Again, there are exceptions. There are corner tracks that are miles and sprints. There are straight tracks like the Nagata 2000 meter outer that are medium tracks but are final straight and spurt maps as well. So any spurt map, you're probably going and running her in end closer or late surger because that is a final straight track. Okay. Her affinity for parenting is basically Measure McQueen. I believe she has a 36 with her, and she has a lot of other different supplementary ones. Notably, she has high affinity with Measure McQueen, of course, which is a good pace chaser inherit on her, as well as Barkroll Blessings, which is TM Opera O New Year as well, and base TM Opera O, of course, and Biwa Haihide, surprisingly enough, which is also basically a clone of Measure McQueen Ultimate with similarly easy conditions to hit that 0.25. I think it's just don't rush. Maybe it's don't late start, but we'll figure that out at some point. Otherwise, just Yaino Miteki, bunch of other characters are in the mid 20s to 30s that are all pretty good to go and build with her. For independent training, she does not have dirt aptitude, so it's a little bit tough, and she doesn't have mile aptitude, which is a little bit tough as well. So she's not necessarily the best independent training character because she doesn't have the mile aptitude, the medium aptitude, the long aptitude, and the dirt aptitude to go and run the majority of the G1 races. So, in conclusion, Blue Teo, or Tokai Teio Original, is a relatively fine character at the moment with a very powerful ultimate that's pretty much a clean slate character. She doesn't give you too many skills at the moment. She's buffed greatly in the evolutions patch whenever they decide to go and bring it out. And in general, if you enjoy the character, she's perfectly viable and flexible on a lot of different PvP tracks that are in the game. Only thing to let you know is, as a little bit of trivia, why does she go and raise her fingers three? If she raises three fingers, well, it's for the Triple Crown, right? Or it's just to say Hachimi, Hachimi, Hachimi. Take care, everyone. Burbout.